For a long stretch of time, Kristy McNichol wasn't just another young star. She was everywhere. Her face was on television screens, in movie theaters, and splashed across magazine covers. Her smile didn't just light up a scene, it made people feel safe. It felt familiar, like someone you already knew. And when she cried on camera, it didn't feel like acting. It felt real. It hit people, right in the chest. In the 1970s and 80s, she wasn't simply Hollywood's favorite teenager. She was its emotional center, its heartbeat. A generation grew up watching her, believing in her, and feeling like she would always be there. And then she vanished. No scandal, no goodbye interview. Just silence. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. And fans kept asking the same question. Where did Kristy McNichol go? What really happened to the girl who once ruled both television and film? For a long time, no one had answers. Only rumors. Only theories. Only pieces of a story that never quite fit together. But now, slowly, the truth has begun to surface. Kristy McNichol was born on September 11, 1962, in Los Angeles, California, a city built on dreams, where millions come hoping to make it big, and most leave with nothing. But unlike many Hollywood stories, her life didn't begin with flashing lights or red carpets. She grew up in a small, modest home with her mother, Carolyn, and her older brother, Jimmy. No luxury, no connections, just a tight little family trying to stay afloat. Her father walked out when she was still very young, leaving Carolyn to raise two children completely on her own. And she didn't have any safety net, no rich relatives, no backup plan, just determination. Carolyn worked multiple jobs to survive, a secretary by day, a makeup saleswoman when she could be, even a background actress in low-budget films when opportunities came along. Whatever brought in money, she did it. Every dollar mattered, every shift mattered, every sacrifice mattered. For the McNichol family, life wasn't about fame. It wasn't about Hollywood. It wasn't about being discovered. It was about making it through the week, putting food on the table, keeping the lights on. For them, it wasn't about stardom at all. It was about survival. She wasn't supposed to be discovered that day. It was meant to be just another long, exhausting shift on a dusty film set. But fate had other plans. Carolyn, strapped for cash and unable to afford a babysitter, brought her two kids along with her while she worked as a background extra. The children sat quietly nearby, watching the controlled chaos of cameras, lights, and shouting crew members. Then, out of nowhere, one of the crew glanced over, did a double take, and said something that would change their lives forever. Those kids, they'd be perfect for commercials. It was just a casual comment, a throwaway line. But for this family, it became a doorway into a world they never imagined entering. Not long after, both Kristy and Jimmy started auditioning. Toothpaste ads, cereal commercials, soft drinks, anything they could get. And surprisingly, they didn't just audition, they booked them. Jimmy was charming and relaxed, sliding into the spotlight naturally. But Kristy, she didn't just fit in, she stood out. There was something about her that was hard to explain. A quiet spark, a rare mix of childlike innocence and emotional depth that made adults stop and really look. Casting directors noticed it immediately. The way her face held both light and sorrow. The way her eyes told stories without her saying a word. Even at just 10 years old, she wasn't pretending on camera. She was feeling. By the mid-1970s, she was already landing steady guest roles on shows like Apple's Way and Starsky and Hutch. But then, in 1976, everything shifted. She was cast as Letitia Buddy Lawrence on ABC's acclaimed drama, Family. A role that wouldn't just change her career, it would change her life. She wasn't even old enough to drive, yet she was already carrying an entire TV show on her shoulders. At just 13 years old, Kristy McNichol stepped onto the set and delivered a performance so real, so emotional, it didn't feel like acting. It felt like watching someone live their truth on screen. The show dared to explore real-life issues most sitcoms avoided: divorce, adolescence, identity, and her character Buddy became its emotional heartbeat. Unlike the perfect, smiley TV kids of that era, Buddy was complicated. She was sensitive, outspoken, sometimes confused, sometimes lost. And Kristy didn't play her like a role. She played her like herself. Critics couldn't ignore it. Her maturity, her rawness, her authenticity. She earned 3 consecutive Emmy nominations for Best Supporting Actress and won twice, in 1977 and in 1979. Think about that. Most kids her age were worrying about homework and crushes. She was winning Emmys. Fans adored her. She was everywhere. Magazine covers, talk shows, fan mail pouring in from across the country. America saw her as their little sister, but behind that glowing image was a life growing more and more unstable by the day. Off camera, Kristy's world was anything but calm. Her mother managed her career, but depended heavily on her income to keep the family afloat. Kristy later admitted, "I felt like the grown-up in the house. My mom was the child." That emotional role reversal took its toll. While other teenagers worried about prom and school dances, Kristy worried about contracts, call times, and staying professional. Her days were swallowed by filming schedules and endless publicity. No normal teenage life, no real breaks. By the time Family ended in 1980, Kristy McNichol had already achieved more than most actors ever would in a lifetime. She was loved, respected, and undeniably talented. Yet inside, she felt drained, incomplete, like something had been taken instead of gained. The little girl from Los Angeles had given the world everything it wanted. What she didn't realize was that Hollywood would soon start collecting its price. And fame always comes with a cost. When Family ended in 1980, Kristy was only 18 years old, but the exhaustion she carried felt like someone who had lived 2 full lifetimes. She didn't grow up into Hollywood. She grew up inside it. While other kids were still trying to figure out who they were, she was already hitting her marks, nailing her lines, and carrying entire scenes on her shoulders. To the industry, Kristy wasn't a teenager. She was a professional, reliable, emotional, bankable. And when Family wrapped, there was no break, no time to breathe. The scripts just kept coming, and Kristy kept saying yes. That same year, she starred alongside Tatum O'Neal in Little Darlings, a bold, coming-of-age film about 2 girls from completely different worlds brought together at a summer camp by a risky bet. But this wasn't just another teen flick. It was raw, honest, uncomfortable in all the right ways. Kristy's portrayal of Angel Bright, tough on the outside, painfully vulnerable on the inside, completely stole the spotlight. She didn't just play the role. She became it. Critics were blown away by her naturalism. Even Roger Ebert noted that her performance made audiences eager to see what she would do next. And suddenly, she wasn't just an actress anymore. She was a phenomenon. Teen magazines plastered her face across every cover. She was America's favorite rebel. Confident, independent, a little rough around the edges, but undeniably real. But fame never comes without a downside. In that same whirlwind year, she appeared in The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia, alongside Dennis Quaid and Mark Hamill, earning one of the highest paychecks ever given to a teenage actress at the time. And in 1981, she dove into an even heavier role in Neil Simon's Only When I Laugh, playing the emotionally burdened daughter of a recovering alcoholic. The roles got deeper, the fame got bigger, and the pressure got heavier. It should have been her victory lap, but instead, it was the beginning of her breaking point. The film earned her a Golden Globe nomination and pushed her even deeper into the spotlight. From the outside, Christie's career looked unstoppable, flawless, powerful, destined for greatness. But behind the cameras, she was quietly unraveling. Years later, she admitted she never really knew how to say no. Not to directors, not to producers, not even to her own mother. Hollywood demanded more, always more. And Christie, terrified of disappointing anyone, kept saying yes. Before I could even say yes or no, I'd already be on a plane to a new set, she once recalled. What she didn't realize then was that every yes was carving something out of her. Her energy, her peace, her sense of self. She wasn't just overworked. She was a teenager trying to survive in an adult world that never slowed down. A child star expected to perform endlessly, without hesitation, without complaint. By the time 1982 came, the cracks could no longer be hidden. Her next film, The Pirate Movie, was meant to be another cheerful hit, a light-hearted musical parody. Instead, it crashed with critics. Worse, she was nominated for a Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Actress. A brutal twist for someone who had just been crowned one of Hollywood's brightest young stars. But the truth is, the movie wasn't the real problem. Everything behind it was. It wasn't fame that broke her. It was the silence behind the applause. The endless pressure, the sleepless nights, the anxiety she never spoke about, it was all slowly eating Christie alive. And in 1984, in what looked like another dream opportunity, she accepted a leading role in Just the Way You Are, a romantic drama filmed in the breathtaking French Alps. On screen, she played a gifted musician with a disability, learning to embrace who she was. Off screen, her life was quietly falling apart. The story she was acting out was painfully close to the one she was living. By that point, her mental and emotional strength had hit its limit. She battled intense anxiety, severe exhaustion, and drastic weight loss. The people close to her could see it. She wasn't just fading physically, she was vanishing emotionally too. When she finally asked for help, she was told the same thing again and again. Push through it. Don't worry, you'll be fine. But she wasn't. By the time she returned from France, Christie McNichol wasn't the same person anymore. Doctors later said she was suffering from deep emotional trauma, anxiety, and complete burnout, the kind that builds up after years of pretending everything is okay when it isn't. For someone who had always been the strong one, hearing that felt like failure. Behind the scenes, the studio tried to control the narrative, blaming it on a chemical imbalance. But the tabloids didn't care. They labeled her unstable, another child star who couldn't handle success. The truth was far less sensational and far more human. She wasn't cracking under fame. She was trying to survive it. It would have been easier to kick an addiction, she later confessed, than go through the years of hell that I did. By the time she walked back onto that set, something in her had changed. The sparkle people once knew was quieter now, almost guarded. When the film finally hit theaters in 1984, audiences saw vulnerability on screen, but they didn't know they were watching a real struggle, not just a performance. For a while, Christie tried to hold on. She took roles in Dream Lover, You Can't Hurry Love, and The Forgotten One, hoping to steady her footing again. But Hollywood had already shifted, and more importantly, so had she. Fame, once her greatest dream, now felt like a cage. Behind the scenes, she struggled with sleepless nights, emotional highs and lows, and a deep, unshakable sadness, signs doctors would later recognize as bipolar disorder. Through it all, one person never left her side, her brother, Jimmy McNichol. They had entered the industry together as kids, but when Christie's world began falling apart, Jimmy became her anchor. She wasn't just my sister, he later said. She was my kid, my best friend. He moved in with her, cooked for her, cleaned, and helped her face each difficult day. For the first time in her life, Christie wasn't the one carrying everyone else. Someone was finally taking care of her. By the mid-1980s, she had almost vanished from Hollywood. The cheerful teenage star from Family was gone, replaced by a woman trying to figure out who she really was, without scripts, lights, and applause. And although she would step back onto television soon, her heart no longer belonged to fame the way it once had. Then came 1988, and with it, a quiet second chance. NBC offered Christy a role on Empty Nest, the spin-off of The Golden Girls. She played Barbara Weston, a tough but compassionate police officer living with her widowed father. It wasn't the intense drama of Family, but it gave her something she hadn't had in years: stability. For the first time in a long while, she was surrounded by laughter, genuine friendship, and a supportive crew. No pressure to carry a show on her shoulders, just a place where she could breathe again. Just when fans thought they had lost her forever, she was back. When Christy returned to television with Empty Nest, audiences cheered like a long-lost friend had come home. The show became a Saturday night favorite, airing alongside The Golden Girls, and for a while, it felt like the magic was back. Viewers fell in love with her all over again. But behind that familiar smile, the storm never really stopped. While the cameras rolled, Christy was fighting another battle, one no one could see. Some nights, sleep wouldn't come. Other days, the emotions crashed in waves she couldn't hold back. So in 1992, at the height of the show's success, she made a decision that shocked everyone. She stepped away, quietly. No dramatic announcement, no public explanation, just silence. Her publicist said it was for health reasons, but the real truth didn't surface until nearly 10 years later. In 2001, Christy finally opened up. She revealed she had been living with manic depression, now known as bipolar disorder. "I didn't want to talk about it at the time," she explained. "It was very private, but now I want to tell people the truth." In an era when mental health was rarely discussed openly, her honesty meant everything. She wasn't chasing sympathy, she was offering comfort, letting others know they weren't alone, especially those who felt trapped between success and silent struggle. She returned one last time for the Empty Nest finale in 1995, giving fans the goodbye they never got. After that, she only lent her voice to a few animated shows like Extreme Ghostbusters and Invasion America, and then she stepped out of the spotlight for good. Hollywood never saw her on screen again. When asked years later if she'd ever return, she smiled softly and said, "Never say never," but her voice carried a different message. This wasn't another disappearance. This was a goodbye on her own terms. The healing years had begun. For the first time since she was a child, there were no scripts to memorize, no bright lights, no schedules dictated by someone else. At 39 years old, Christy McNichol was finally doing something she had never truly done before: living life for herself. She didn't disappear, she chose peace. When the spotlight finally faded, silence took its place, and for Christy, that silence became medicine. No cameras, no pressure, no constant demand to perform, just a life that was finally her own. She began teaching acting at a private school in Los Angeles, passing her hard-earned knowledge to young students who didn't just admire her talent, but respected her honesty. In the classroom, she found a new kind of stage, one where she could inspire without being consumed. She reminded her students that acting was never about fame or applause. It was about empathy, about truth, about learning to feel deeply without losing yourself. Teaching allowed her to stay connected to the art she loved, but without the weight that had nearly broken her. Outside the classroom, Christy built a quiet life. No red carpets, no flashing lights, just close friends, meaningful routines, and a heart focused on giving back. She supported local charities, found calm through yoga, stayed active with tennis, and filled her home with love, especially from her miniature dachshunds, who became her constant companions. "They keep me grounded," she once said. "Dogs don't care if you're famous. But life didn't stop testing her. In 1997, just days before her 35th birthday, she lost a close friend and former partner, actress Elizabeth Brooks, to cancer. The loss cut deep. It left a permanent mark on her heart, but it also made her compassion even stronger. Instead of closing off, she opened up. She became more involved in cancer research causes and mental health support, determined to help others find the strength she had fought so hard to build. When she was later asked what she missed most about acting, her answer surprised many. It wasn't the fame, it wasn't the attention, it wasn't the spotlight, it was the people. Because for Kristy McNichol, Hollywood had never just been a dream. It had been both a blessing and a wound. After decades of living in the shadows, Kristy McNichol finally stepped into the light, on her own terms. By 2012, she was no longer defined by fame or heartbreak, but by something far more powerful: love, courage, and peace. That year, Kristy surprised the world, not with a Hollywood comeback, but with the truth. Through her publicist, she revealed that she was gay and had been living happily with her partner, Marty Allen, since the early 1990s. It wasn't a publicity stunt or a calculated media move. It was honesty, plain and simple, a declaration after years of silence. She said, "I want to help others who feel different and to support kids who are being bullied." For the first time, fans didn't see the teen idol or the actress. They saw the real Kristy, a woman who had survived the pressures of fame, endured heartbreak, and emerged stronger, loving, and unafraid. Behind every radiant smile on television, there's often a story the cameras never capture, a story of struggle, resilience, and quiet triumph. Kristy McNichol's journey is exactly that. Through every breakdown, every shocking departure from empty nest, and every painstaking year of rebuilding her life, one constant remained: Marty. He was there through it all, a steady presence through the chaos. Together, they built a sanctuary, not one filled with flashing lights and cameras, but with laughter, loyalty, and a deep, unshakable peace. Today, at 62, Kristy still calls Los Angeles home. She spends her days teaching, mentoring aspiring actors, and occasionally reconnecting with fans who have followed her journey for decades. The whirlwind of her youth, the panic, the pressure, the fame, is now a chapter firmly in the past. Her net worth, estimated between $7 and $8 million, comes mostly from royalties earned from the classic shows and films that made her a household name. Yet, for Kristy, money was never the measure of success. Survival was. "I was on the big stage between ages 8 and 30. I left show business to play my biggest part, myself." Those words, simple, profound, and raw, capture the essence of her life. Kristy didn't step away because she failed. She stepped away because she refused to lose herself. In leaving Hollywood, she turned courage itself into her most extraordinary performance. Her story is a reminder that fame never defines a person. Resilience does. Kristy McNichol didn't fall victim to Hollywood. She found herself by stepping out of its blinding, relentless lights. And in doing so, she taught us that sometimes the bravest role anyone can play is simply living authentically.